Today I'm going to show you guys the old firing range that is located off of Birchwood Lake. The story behind this site is that after the war, individuals who served decided to put a group together where they would meet in the woods, hang out, tell old war stories, reminisce about the good old days, and I guess maybe the bad old days because of all the terrible things that generation saw and the sacrifices they made for us. And they set up a firing range. Now, I originally didn't know this existed, despite going past this site several times. They set up a bunch of railroad tiles, and they would mount targets on these railroad tiles, and they would shoot from a ridge opposite the hill that these railroad tiles were located on. Now, when I passed this site in the past, I thought the structure was just an old horseshoe pit. Eventually, the group of people who would meet at this site expanded and would invite different groups like the Boy Scouts, and they would teach these groups firearm safety tactics and how to properly discharge a firearm. Now eventually, by the time you got to the 70s and 80s, this group and the organizations that they would work with began to lose their popularity as Mountain Lakes developed into a suburb, and as more houses and more people moved into the area, eventually they didn't like the idea of people shooting off firearms not far from their neighborhoods. So in 1987, a law was passed that outlawed the discharge of firearms within the city limits. But by 1987, this site really wasn't in much use anymore. The site that we will be going will be the third left. The first left is the red trail. The second left is this sled run trail, which will be featured in another of my videos. And the third left is the left we want. We are traveling on the opposite side of the beach located at Birchwood Lake. And this is the left that we need. The site is about 60 to 70 yards down the path once you take the third left off of the Birchwood Lake trail or walkway. As you can see, there are a couple of different structures. You can see a few railroad tiles along that ridge where targets were placed, but the main structure is right up ahead here. I don't know how well this is going to come out on my GoPro camera, but if you look closely here, you can see the nail marks where they would put the targets that they would then shoot at. Now you may be thinking, how on earth were they able to shoot at these targets with all these trees all around here? And my response would be, if you look closely at these trees, a lot of them are younger. And so in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of these trees probably weren't around, and those that were much smaller. So if you look in the distance, they most likely would set up on that ridge that we just walked down, and they would fire from that ridge to here. If you'd missed your target, you'd simply fire into the side of a hill, but there are houses on the other side, so as more and more people moved in, they weren't comfortable with that, hence the 1987 law that outlawed this practice.